Hey everybody, I just want to say great Martin Luther King Day, and on the front of Oakland News now is a 2008 30-minute long interview that I conducted with then and now Oakland Post publisher Paul Cobb, talking about not just the late Oakland Post and Oakland Tribune reporter and friend Chauncey Bailey's work and other information tied to that, but also Paul Cobb's friendship with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And if you want to have a different view about Dr. King and Dr. King's ties to the local Oakland community via Paul Cobb, who is a living legend, please have a look, have a listen, have a watch at that video, and be sure, since it may very well be very cold where you're at, to do so with a great cup of tea or your favorite hot beverage and relax, because it is 30 minutes long. And I guarantee you're going to want to say something about it at the end or make a comment, but I digress. I want to take a different turn here and talk about the resolution of the Moms for Housing issue. For those of you who don't know, this started back in November when a group that calls itself Moms for Housing, and consisting of homeless mothers and their families, elected to take over a home that was purchased by Wedgewood Properties at 2928 Magnolia and squat on it. There was no one there, no one living there. Wedgewood had bought the property really to turn it over. And what happened was these homeless mothers were basically tired of empty homes around West Oakland and around Oakland in particular being purchased up by speculators and held, as opposed to being used as housing for those who really need the homes. So they took actions in their own hands. Oakland has a homeless population estimated at between 4,000 and 6,000 people. It's very large, and is, by some measure, approximately 8% of the Oakland working population. This resolution today was announced by Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, who said this.
Few days, Wedgewood has agreed to negotiate in good faith with the Oakland Community Land Trust to sell them at a price not exceeding the appraised value the Magnolia Street house that the moms had occupied and had been evicted from. And we are all aware that the intention of the Community Land Trust is to purchase and fix that home for the moms. But even more than that, Wedgewood has made a historic agreement to change the way they do business in Oakland and to offer community land trusts or other affordable housing organizations or the city the right of first refusal on all of their properties. This means we have the opportunity to, for fair market value, take these homes off of the speculative market and put them into permanent ownership of owners themselves that are low-income families or affordable housing organizations that will keep this housing accessible and affordable for our most vulnerable families. Wedgewood has also agreed to use local Oakland workers from organizations like Cypress Mandela on all their construction projects in Oakland. And for our part, the mayor's office has agreed to convene an advisory board on community ownership of housing to be co-chaired by one of the Moms for Housing. This group will work on many things, including ensuring that this sale of the Magnolia house goes through to the Community Land Trust. But we will also be working on policies that could potentially ensure that speculative purchases are first offered to affordable housing organizations, as well as a Tenants Opportunity to Purchase Act that would allow tenants to have the first right to buy property that they've been living in before it is offered for sale on the competitive market.
And that's fantastic. But what bothers me is a continuation of something I've said from the onset, that the reason why we have this problem of a lack of affordable housing is because, as governor, Jerry Brown pushed for the elimination of something called redevelopment law. Oakland was a master at using redevelopment tax increment financing to produce a gargantuan fund source for affordable housing, so large that arguably Oakland had developed what I called an affordable housing industrial complex. That's right. A chain of people involved, from funders to architects to builders and developers to regulators, all focused on affordable housing. Many of them who received their education at some point at Berkeley, either city planning school or in the classes offered at UC Extension. With the elimination of redevelopment, that affordable housing industrial complex slowly faded away. As it faded away, and from 2014 to present day, the tech boom experienced in the Bay Area became a real estate boom, and speculators like Wedgewood and others came in because they realized that a number of tech people were cashing in stock options, had great incomes, and were settling in the Bay Area, and they were buying homes at rates outbidding each other and bidding up the price. So all of these people involved in real estate, they saw nothing but dollar signs. And then what happened after that was that people, generally those who were elderly and black in Oakland, and were being illegally evicted from their homes where they lived primarily in East Oakland and West Oakland, and to the tune of many thousands of people. Some would estimate as many as 6,000 people were the victim of illegal evictions over a 5-year period from 2006 to 2011. Excuse me, not from 2006, but from 2009, just prior to the elimination of redevelopment, through to 2015. So this occurred, and little had been done about it until recently. Until the point that the problem, particularly over the past 2.5 years, became so acute that the homeless population in Oakland skyrocketed. 60% of those who are homeless in Alameda County are homeless in Oakland. Well, 70% if you want to really split hairs in terms of the numbers. But by all accounts, the number of homeless people in Oakland has transformed Oakland's quality of life in a negative way. At one point, there were as many as 7 homeless encampments around Lake Merritt alone. You can drive along San Leandro Boulevard on the way to the Raiders game and see homeless encampment after homeless encampment after homeless encampment on the streets. What's happened in Oakland is tragic. But what's more tragic is the fact that it's become so common that people are actually used to it. And rather than try to ask how they can change the market to stop producing homeless people, they actually want to have laws so that people can't be homeless, just as what Las Vegas has done, which would not happen in Oakland, I would hope. But I digress. Moms for Housing is one issue. The moms got a home, but now there's a gigantic debate played out on social media and Nextdoor, among other places. And the debate is, hey, look, is this what a homeless person has to do in order to gain housing? They have to take over a home, have great media connections, get a lot of attention, and then suddenly the mayor's office gets involved and acts on their part. that would seem to be the case. But the answer is, and I'm going to be very blunt here, that the real problem is that we have a crisis of incompetence with respect to how city government is run. Ideas have been floated, like, for example, the acquisition of property that we used to do as a city of Oakland. We used to do this sort of thing before redevelopment was eliminated. Back in 2004, we did exactly what the mayor's talking about now with respect to involving the nonprofit and obtaining housing so that the housing can be essentially resold and redistributed to those who need it the most. Under redevelopment, we could designate an area that for improvement, identify homes that were underdeveloped, develop those homes, but then make sure that those homes were economically sized to be affordable to first-time home buyers. That's not new. We've done it before. But the combination of ranked choice voting, the strong mayor system, has produced a gigantic turnover in people, in managers in the city of Oakland, and a dramatic reduction in institutional memory. The people that are there now are more interested in acting either as activists or acting to answer an activist rather than seek a solution through government that works for everybody. So what we have now is the appearance that the problem has been solved, but in reality, the real problem, how the market operates, has not been. We need to reestablish redevelopment law in California, but Oakland needs to ignite and tell the truth about what has already been done with respect to Senate Bill 293 at Howard Terminal, where the Oakland A's ballpark is slated to go, and the $1,400,000,000 in subsidy it will produce at a simple $2 billion base year assessed value for a bond issue of over 40 years, assuming a common modest rate of growth in assessed value per year of 4%. That's it. In reality, Jack London's assessed values have grown at 7%. Oakland needs to get its managerial act together. I'm not blaming the mayor. I'm not saying this is the fault of Mayor Schaaf. This is the fault of Oakland's structure. We had the problem prior to Mayor Schaaf, and we're going to have the problem after Mayor Schaaf because of how we do not retain talent over a long term and how we also don't access people who've worked for the city of Oakland to advise us. It doesn't matter if it's myself or Councilmember Dick Spees or former Oakland Mayor Elihu Harris. Mayor Schaaf and previous mayors and mayors after her and people running for city council can access us as sounding boards and as advisory boards to say, this is the direction you should take. People who've worked in city council as staffers who are out there retired, enjoying their golf games, would be happy to help in the role that I'm suggesting. We've got to stop this incompetence, okay? We've got to stop this incompetence that has guided Oakland, and I might add much of California. This is not something that's endemic only to Oakland. And only an outsider would assume that it is. It is not. But because of Moms for Housing, Oakland, once again, has become the spotlight of attention on a policy that has wrecked California as a whole. We need to bring back redevelopment law, and Oakland, in its particular parlance, needs to inform people of the bill that was signed into law already, and that is Section 293, Senate Bill 293, not section, Senate Bill 293, the Howard Terminal Infrastructure Redevelopment Zone. Read that provision of the law. And I might add, for those of you who have a tendency not to do this sort of thing, read the whole thing. Okay? Read the whole thing. Because read the definitions. Read the part you don't want to read. Strain yourself to read that which you don't want to read. Learn it. Because the governor signed it into law October 11th, and the city of Oakland has not talked about it, okay? Has not talked about it. This is not having anything to do with sports directly. Indirectly is another story. This has everything to do with solving the linchpin problem in Oakland, which will become the linchpin problem in other parts of the country. And that is the lack of knowledge. The lack of knowledge of how to use government tools to alter the market to produce housing for those who have least. Just look at where we are in total. We have enormous problem where people, but perhaps such as yourselves, are working 2 to 3 jobs. We would never, ever have thought we'd be in that kind of position before the days we work 1 job to make ends meet. But yet people who are working multiple jobs, and we think that's okay. It's not okay. It means that we're adopting to a bad situation, okay? It's not okay. And what we have to engineer as a society where people can make more money working just 8 hours a day. That is possible, and indeed it must be achievable, because what's going on are the pressures that are being exacted upon us as a people are not positive ones, because people are under this kind of stress. Pressures of domestic violence, pressures of antisocial behavior, the kind of actions that cause people to say we need more police on the street and we need more expenditures for cops, as opposed to looking at the real causes of the problems that produce the behaviors that call for police activity. We've got to get smart about how we run our country before it's too late. And I'll read your comments and I'll get on with it. But I wanted to make this one a short one. Some of you say, I'm going to pick out the comments that are most appropriate to what I was talking about. Ryan Abbott says that house was supposed to be used for at-risk youth, which in my opinion is delinquent youth. Now the women are buying the house. Why do people that break in your residence need to be evicted? I don't quite know how to deal with that one, Ryan. So basically what you're saying is it's okay for them to break into my house, and therefore I shouldn't have to evict them, right? That's what you're saying. Okay? Okay, there you go. I mean, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what I just read. And then John Mark says, go figure. And John Mark says, no, I'm just saying that it's wonderful the moms get a home, but as a whole, Oakland couldn't broker a deal to keep both the Raiders and the Warriors in town. And John, that's what I'm saying. Those are guns and butter issues, because you can't compare homeless people who don't have the power to say they want to. These people just want a place to stay in, okay? They don't have the power to go anywhere. The Raiders and the Warriors is an entirely different story. Arcade says, Las Vegas hides their homeless population. They are in a storm drain tunnels. I saw a very interesting story about this. There's another city in those tunnels. I've heard the same thing. And so John Mark says, Oakland has found a way to help the moms, but they couldn't. I already saw that. I already said that one. Okay, fine. That's neither here nor there. Again, sports has little to do with this. Okay. Yeah, I know Brian Abbott said James Washington. I wrote about James Washington working with Shelter 37, but your comment didn't make sense. It sounded, I couldn't quite figure that one out. All right. That was confusing. So, at any rate, I want to make clear what I'm saying. We have the tools. We need to bring back redevelopment. We need to use the redevelopment law that's Oakland has signed around Senate Bill 293 for Howard Terminal. The Governor Newsom needs to reinstate redevelopment. There's Senate Bill 5 sitting there and unused, okay? Dark Force says, do you think they will create a law for mandatory housing? I certainly hope they do. I do hope that we go the way that FDR had suggested so long ago when he called for a new Bill of Rights, a Bill of Rights that would, in its purest form, guarantee housing. We have the ability to do that. You know, we have the ability to do that. So we need to act. And we also need to act with a consideration that our population is consistently growing. Okay? Dark Force says he works for homeless and home. God bless you. But we need to remember that our population is consistently growing. We've added almost 5 billion people on this planet since 1962, the year I was born. I'm one of them. So are you, possibly. And we haven't talked about what this push toward overcrowding is taking us and how it's making us change. That's another subject for another time. Anyway, I'm going to stop this video and I'm going to start another one. Wright Abbott is saying, I was saying they broke into the house and they had to be evicted, okay? If I came home and someone broke into my property, I wouldn't have to evict them. If you came home and someone broke into your... If I came home and someone broke into my property, I wouldn't have to evict them? If someone broke into your property, you would have to evict them. Of course, all right? Okay, anyway. Donis Jojo says it. We need political will. Absolutely. John Marks says, I thought California was having a population problem. Arguably, the country is having one. Well, it's the world, really. The world's having a population problem. The climate change problem is really a population problem because, look, this rate of growth in people and what we use on a planet that can hold only a finite number of us is really what's created the problem. All right. I'll be back. See you.